Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Pot Smoker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Pot Smoker's Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and authority. It comes from the Ketuvim, or Old Testament, of the Hebrew Bible. I use the King James Version of the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Bible, and to put together the prophecy of Israel from the scattered bits and pieces of testimony from the various prophets of the Old Testament. What I came up with was the Book of Zion, a book of prophecy written entirely in Bible verse. In order to fulfill the prophecy itself, I had to publish peace, which meant to publish the Book of Zion. Now, in order to publish the Book of Zion legally in this world, I had to write another book called the Pot Smoker's Bible, which contains my own uh, commentary and the dissertation on the prophecy of Israel. And I did that in order to fulfill the prophecy. Now, it started in 1979 when I said a prayer to the Most High God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was in that context that the prayer was answered, which is very important because I was raised a Christian and had spent the prior 9 months praying to Jesus. Jesus never answered my prayer. However, on the very day that I called out to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, my prayer was answered by a living God, not a spiritual God, but a physical God, the grave. They answered my prayer just as Daniel had, just as the prophets had their prayers answered, just as Joseph had his prayers answered. And through the convening years, from then until now, God always adhered to the text. Everything that I believed and worked towards was in the Bible because that was my God. And until early 2000s, I thought that it was the fabled God of the Bible, you know, that being that is on a throne in the clouds and blah blah blah. Well, that's not the case. When I got into the actual prophetic times, when I got really to the point where it was like, okay, this is real. God answers my prayers, but what is God? God is gray. And beings that, that was a scary thought, but it was comforting at the same time because I had been in contact with these beings for literally decades before I realized that they were aliens. They were very familiar to me, um, I relied upon them for everything. And yes, it was scary to realize that they were aliens, that they were flying around in UFOs. But it was comforting too because there they were, real. And it's like at that point I started seeing the UFOs. And they worked very hard to prove to me that not only were they the real, true, living God of the earth, but that I was safe with them, that I did not have to fear them, that in fact they worked so hard to provide for me everything that I needed. And I know that I taxed them very much during that time. I was a basket case mentally. I was crazy as a Looney Tune. But they anchored me in my insanity. I knew that there was God. I knew that I wasn't alone. And I knew that all I had to do was say a prayer. And that prayer would be answered. Not always the way that I wanted it to be answered. In fact, most of the times, not in the way I wanted it to be answered. But they were answered, and that was the point. A real, true, living God that can do anything. I mean, anything from providing me with the money to pay a bill I couldn't pay to enough, a cigarette when I smoked cigarettes and was broke and didn't have any cigarettes, or when I was out of pot and needed to get high. I would have people that I hadn't seen for years just suddenly pop up out of nowhere just to come smoke a bowl with me because I had prayed. I need to get high, God, I'm out of pot. But God is such that that prayer would only be answered when there was absolutely nothing in the house left for me to get high on. So if I ran out of pot, but I hadn't cleaned my bowl yet, I wasn't going to get any pot in my prayer. I had to smoke the resin out of the bowl so that there was absolutely no means for me to get high before the pot came as an answer to that prayer, which taught me to be self-reliant. That I wasn't supposed to rely on God for every little tiny thing that I needed. That I had the means myself to go out and do things for myself. Now, when I started this, I was a basket case and could not even do that. But through their teaching, through their suffering with me in my time of desperation, they taught me to heal. They taught me to be self-reliant. They taught me to be proud of who I am. Not pride as in pride comes before a fall, but a meek sort of pride, a humble pride that I had survived all of these terrible things and God loved me anyway, even though I was all these things that I had been taught were unacceptable to God. But to the true God, I found that they were acceptable, namely the use of marijuana and other drugs. But other things like knowing God on a personal level, as opposed to going to church and sitting there listening to somebody tell you about God all the time. Because believe it or not, there is a passage in the book of Isaiah that says that that's not allowed. You're not allowed to go to church and sit there all dressed up in your Sunday best and listen to some guy preach to you about God. That's not how you worship God. In fact, you don't even worship God. God's not about worship. That's one of the biggest fallacies of religion on this planet. God, the sentient beings known as gray, don't want to be worshipped. Why would they want to be worshipped? They're nothing but physical beings who just happen to be a lot more advanced than we are. That's not a reason to glorify them. They are born, they live, and they die just like we do. They have generations just like we do. They have problems just like we do. They are just like us. Sentient, physical life forms. And we need to respect them for that. So, saying a prayer for every little tiny thing that you need is not a way to be. And I have a clue for you. Praying for money, it's not going to make them happy. They will just reject you out of hand because money is the basis of all evil. It is the underlying fallacy of this society. And just by taking that one block out, just by taking money away, this society will come crashing down around our feet because it's not made on anything real. And the gray are real. Jesus Christ is not real. The cross is not real. Money is not real. Religion is not real. Religion as we know it is a bastardization of every religion that was before. At the beginning of our civilization, there was only one religion. It wasn't really a religion at all. It was the way of life. There were the gray, the gods, and they ran everything because they were the intelligent ones. And we learned everything from them. But for every city, there was a different god. Administrator is really what they were. So the government of the planet Earth was the Grey. We called them God because they came from heaven and they ran everything. But they left. And when they left, we took their political system and made a religion out of it. And so we took all of these different beings that had run the different principalities upon the earth in the old days, and we glorified them as these supreme beings, which they never were. They were always from the heavens. They were always an alien race that that co-inhabited our planet, that created us from them, just as our texts tell us. But they were never all powerful, all encompassing God beings that we consider to be religious. So the whole concept of religion on this planet is a fable. They took a political system and made it into religion. But they didn't take this one planetary political system. But it was political. It wasn't religious. It never had anything to do with faith, belief, or something, some fabled end game. It was always a political structure. That was how they ran the planet. So they had this one unified government. And we took that one unified government and chopped it up into little pieces and called it religion. Now, each of these people who had run our country at the time when the Grey were running the country, they each had their own individual mandates, their own individual books, where they had all their rules and regulations put down. These rules and regulations became sacred texts. So a political system of government became a religious sect based on the teachings, the moral teachings of this prehistory political system. And it devolved into this chaos that we see today. So the Grey are coming back to reinstitute this pseudo-religious political system of government. I call it the Council of Grey. I call it the guild system. And by following these teachings left to us by these beings, we can again unify religion and make it political. We can exchange the names of the bygone gods, and we can replace them with new names for the new gods. They're still from the heavens. They're still technically God. But instead of all-powerful beings that dictate every aspect of human life and, oh my God, we have to kiss their ass. No. These are intelligent beings from another planet who have a political system that encompasses all of this moral knowledge that we have here on this planet. And if we unify all of our religions, all our sacred texts, we can find that political system that used to be political but is now religious. And that's what I did with the Book of Zion. I put it all together and found the Grey. So, may the Grey watch over you, guide you, protect you, and keep you from all harm. May they teach you right from wrong, and may you be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light the unicorn way. Find your joy and pursue it. Make that your guild choice. It'll make you a lot happier, believe me. I know. If you use drugs, stay happy and high. You have every right and reason to. Believe me, I know I wrote the books. You are justified. You are righteous. So, my name is Zion. I love you way too much to ever say goodbye. So I'm going to say later.